Today is Thursday, September 26, 2024. Casey, we're on the cusp of week 4 of fantasy football starting. Your Dallas Cowboys are playing tonight.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about your fantasy squads heading towards the week?
I don't know how I feel. No, I it is, I'm in way too many leagues as people. I don't know if you can be in too many leagues, but
You can.
Yeah, exactly. And I might be in too many of those. So Dynasty, definitely hideous. But for my redraft leagues, I'm doing all right. I need to learn to set my lineups better because, and when I say that, I mean, we were doing sit start for everybody else, and I missed one. And it was my home league. So,
oh, no.
This is why you need to double, triple, and do all of that. So definitely do that. But I'm excited, and looking forward to the game tonight. I don't have to pick my wife up from the airport, so she's taking an Uber home, so I can watch the game. So,
well, after the 5 a.m. drop off at the airport, I feel like that's fair. If you get a reprieve, right?
Yeah, she booked her Uber to the airport for 5 p.m. or whatever. So yeah, that was a good time when she was like, "Hey, can you take me to the airport?" And I'm super asleep.
When I did the Senior Bowl, when I covered the Senior Bowl in January or whatever, I had to be at the airport at 3:30 a.m. So I just paid for parking at the airport. I can't ask anybody to do that. I want to pop in the chat here real quick, Casey. We got Toronto Dave with the party hats. What's up, TD? Always good to see you, my friend. Carla Cespedes over on Twitch saying hi and happy Thursday. Thanks for tuning back in. We were really thrilled with your comment last week, so we hope that you got into some fantasy football stuff and you're enjoying it so far. We've got Vince Mapstone popping in from Down Under saying, "Good day, legends. What is cracking?" We are just getting ready for some fantasy football, as is Dave with those hearts right there. Speaking of getting ready for fantasy football, Casey, as we were kind of talking about before, we have Thursday night football tonight. The New York Giants are going to be in Arlington, Texas to face off against the Dallas Cowboys at AT&T Stadium. The current over-under on DraftKings Sportsbook is set at 45, and your Dallas Cowboys are 5-point favorites tonight. What's your overall feeling for this game, Casey? Like, what is there something that you're looking to happen on either side from a fantasy perspective? Like maybe are you looking for Jalen Tolbert to have a big game? Do we think Steven Singletary can get it going against this Dallas defense? What are you kind of looking at for this matchup?
Well, Singletary has been a guy that I've been touting as a guy you need to start this week for the purposes of the Dallas defense sucks against the run. So, for my fantasy purposes, since I have a lot of shares of said individual on my team, that's what I want to see. And as a Cowboys fan, you don't like to see it, but maybe it'll light a fire or whatever underneath them.
Anything. I mean, I'm all about Devin Singletary this week. Dallas has the worst run defense for fantasy purposes. They're giving up 34.4 half PPR points right now to running backs. Singletary hasn't been awful. I've never been a huge fan of his. I think he's just kind of a mid-jag type player. But like in this situation, and it's the Giants, the only person they can throw the ball to is Malik Neighbors, right? So I think this could be a big night for Singletary. On the Dallas side, though, I want to ask you about Jalen Tolbert. Do you think he's second on the team in targets, obviously behind CeeDee Lamb, tied with Jake Ferguson. Do you think he continues to establish himself as a wide receiver 2 this week against the Giants?
I'm not so sure. And the reason I say that is, well, we didn't really think, like, we were always CeeDee Lamb and who's going to catch the ball? Well, Dak showed that he's going to throw to all kinds of guys. Hunter Lupke, who else? Dowdle's doing his thing now, which was surprising to see too. Maybe it's not the greatest, but it's more surprising than I thought the run game was going to be. And I'm just not sure, Jake Ferguson was out, so that, opened up a few more opportunities. This might just be one of those guys that you just hold for right now and just let him sit on your bench.
I'm with you on that. I like the talent. I don't know that there's enough to go around if Ferguson is in the lineup. So we'll see tonight. The Giants haven't been especially bad against wide receivers, just kind of a middle-of-the-road defense. So Dak, however, QB7 on the season right now. He is playing really, really well. Obviously, tonight you start him. You have to. It's against the Giants. Is he someone who's going to remain a top 12 QB the rest of the season, or do you think this is something like a flash that maybe is going to fade a little bit?
Man, so watching that last game, I had said, like, if you had to bench somebody in a one QB league, that I would choose Dak, and he was proving me right until the end of the game. So when the Cowboys decide to start playing football, that's when you get all that garbage time trying to catch up, all that good stuff or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
so if I see that happening a lot. So you might start him just for the, and you're going to be sweating it out the entire game. The last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, so, towards the end of the game, he's going to come back.
It wouldn't be fun if we weren't sweating it out at the end of the game, right? It's kind of the fun of football. Now, with the Giants, Daniel Jones has been putrid. Malik Neighbors, however, is the wide receiver one in every format. PPR, half PPR, standard. Though in standard, he is tied with Juwan Jennings. Malik Neighbors has been phenomenal. I had an inkling he might be the best receiver in this class, even over Marvin Harrison Jr. So far, he has been just that, at least for fantasy. Is there any other receivers in this offense that are at any single point going to emerge as fantasy relevant? I mean, Darius Slayton's trying.
They're trying is the problem. I'm not sure if anybody's actually going to get to that spot. I don't know if it's going to be one of those situations where every week we have to guess who that next guy is going to be, because it's happening on a few teams.
Yeah, right. Now, with Daniel Jones, Dallas is 4th worst against the quarterback. Is he a guy you're looking to fire up in 2QB this week?
Yes, I am actually. Was actually surprised at saying that, but Daniel Jones may not be the best quarterback in the world, but he's been decent. Dallas, they just, it's one of those situations where you can throw on them, you can run on them, like especially run on them, so that you might, but he can run too. He can run when he needs to. So like, he's not the same runner he used to be, but no one is after they get injured.
Yeah, right. I'm willing to fire him up. I'll start him over guys like Andy Dalton, Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, Will Levis. Start him over Gardner Minshew, Bo Nix. I'm not going to start him over Baker Mayfield, Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, probably not Derek Carr. But again, like you said, rushing upside, they're better served when they keep the ball on the ground. This is a defense where I think Daniel Jones can actually find some room, and they might design some runs. I mean, we've seen Dable do it before with Daniel Jones. So I'll be curious to see how that all kind of plays out with this game. Now, I'm curious, we do this every week. Who is your top fantasy scorer in this game, Casey?
Devin Singletary. Again, I don't know. I was on Jalen Naylor. I was talking about my fantasy crush, and I think I might have another one this week on Singletary.
Well, it's such a great matchup. So I can see it being either him, or I think Malik Neighbors goes for 30 plus.
I see that. I can see that happening as well. Yep.
All right. I want to get to the chat, Casey. We've got a few people popping in with some questions. We've got Walid Ella IB. Walid Ella IB. This is one of the most fun things about hosting, right? Because his names come up and I don't want to screw them up. Vince has a question here. I've got a feeling this is a get-right game for the Dallas defense. He's expecting a bloodbath. I could 100% see that.
I could see that happen.
I could see it.
Especially with oh my gosh. I know we see this every single year, how drunk the NFL is.
Yeah.
But it is.
It's drunk. Every single year. Walid's question here, Casey, is would you trade Garrett Wilson for Devontae Adams? I would not.
I wouldn't
not right
either.
Now.
Not right now?
No.
I don't know. I'd rather have Garrett Wilson.
Well, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be for sure in Vegas. It's probably going to be Minshew, but they could pivot to O'Connell. We don't know. We saw O'Connell get in there last week. And I don't know where the ball's going. Brock Bowers is the wide receiver one on this team.
It's going to Jacoby Myers. That's where it's going.
Come
on, y'all.
Yeah, it's going to Jacoby Myers.
That's my dude.
We got CCCC in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. Please, guys, make sure while you were here to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We love the subs. We appreciate it so much. CCCC wants to know what to do with Rachaad White. I mean, with the emergence of Bucky Irving, I don't know how much value he has. And he says in his other questions, keep or trade Tyreek. Let's start with Rachaad White. Casey, what are you doing about Rachaad White right now?
Man, what am I doing with Rachaad White right now? I'm probably just having him on my bench and hoping that, in the next few games, Just,
Yeah.
hoping, because I don't know if you try to pick somebody else up, and unless there's somebody super awesome that's out there, amazingly crazy, and I don't feel comfortable starting him, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, last week was a bad week against Denver. Denver's defense
was.
showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I was very confused. However, he still had 5 catches, only 18 yards, didn't get a touchdown, still hasn't scored a touchdown this season. Bucky Irving, on the other hand, doesn't really get the receptions. So I'm holding Rachaad White right now because there will be a point where he will become valuable again in PPR formats.
Mhm.
That said, if you have him in standard, you shouldn't have ever had him on your roster in the first place. So I would move on to literally anything else, because without PPR points, Rachaad White has almost no value at this point in fantasy.
Stinks.
And then, Casey, what are you doing about Tyreek Hill?
What am I doing about Tyreek Hill? Well, I don't think I feel super comfortable starting him this week. And I know you're asking about what you should do with him. I don't think I could. And I mean, you're going to have to start him this week, but it's going to feel gross.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, that quarterback situation makes things so disgusting. I get where you're coming from, but he's very talented and we know that.
Yeah. And he'll get his, he didn't last week. He only had the 3 catches. He's only targeted 5 times. This offense just needs, I feel like they need a little bit of time to figure out what they are without Tua right now. And I'm hoping to see Tyler Huntley soon. I think that makes this offense a little bit better. So hang on to Tyreek and start him this week. I don't think you really have much of a choice here.
No.
We've got the Paula 34 dropping in the chat asking, would it be crazy to bench Mahomes for Dak this week or long term?
Definitely not this week. I don't think it would be crazy to do that at all on the matchup.
Look, Patty Mahomes is getting it done in other ways. He just really has not been great for fantasy.
No.
So, no, it's not crazy. Rest of season, let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's not crazy at all. It's kind of crazy how crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We've got HoofTube in the chat saying Bucky Irving ain't the answer. He's a compliment to White.
We love those compliments, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. We've got Bronson Hayo jumping in the chat. Love that Avi of Michael Thomas, Bronson. His question, should I take London and Brian Thomas Jr. for Goddard, Waddle, and Keon Coleman, or I could give Ladd instead of Waddle? Ooh. I had an interesting conversation over the weekend about Atlanta. And kind of what we settled on was that maybe, just maybe, none of these receivers in Atlanta are that great, including Drake London.
Right.
And that's why Kirk Cousins has been spreading the ball out. Whether or not that's true, it's kind of what it's starting to feel like. So I don't believe in Trevor Lawrence. He's over. At this point, I really do believe he has been massively overrated. I don't love Brian Thomas Jr.'s value with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. He's too much of a boom guy. Like, it's almost like an Xavier Worthy type. Like, you're praying for a couple long balls to Brian Thomas to get those fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually make this move. Yeah, because I think Waddle's got long-term value this season. Once Tua's back, and he said he's coming back, I think Waddle's going to be fine. Goddard put in a tight end 1 performance last weekend. You always love to see those in a really barren tight end landscape. And Keon Coleman still has a chance to emerge as something fantasy relevant in Buffalo. So yeah, I would take that deal.
Yeah, I'm definitely wanting to have a tight end that's been solid enough for the tight end position. Especially, what he's done, like, it's surprising compared to like what all these other tight ends are doing right now in the landscape. Waddle, he can right the ship. We'll see what's going on. The quarterback situation, definitely, they got to work out the kinks. So hopefully they can either do that or Tua can come back sooner than later. And then Keon, I like his, I just want to hold on to him on my roster. I like his value. I like what he can do, the talent there. And I'd take him over Brian Thomas. I'd take those other 2. Yeah, we're good.
Yep. Yeah, we're going for it. All right. We appreciate all of the comments in the chat, guys, and the questions. Please keep them coming as we are here live right now, getting you set for week 4 of fantasy football. For those of you just tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure that you like this video and subscribe. We love the subs. And with that, Casey, let's get into some post-waiver wire additions that you and I looked at. We've got 2 players apiece. Most leagues' waivers ran last night or early this morning. There are guys who are still going to be left out there that people didn't claim for whatever reason. You can grab now. So we took a look at the ESPN rostership percentages. Casey, let's start with your first one because he's one of my favorites, and we bring him up every week, I feel like, on this show. We've got Mike Gesicki over in Cincinnati, the tight end, as he calls himself. I'm just a big slot receiver.
Yeah, and that's and that's one of the reasons why you should pick him up. 36.6% roster on ESPN. So he's out there. He might not be out there in your league, but go check, especially with the tight end landscape that we've been pounding into your head about how it's been ick. He's had 4 or more targets every game this year. Yes, there's other tight ends on the roster, but he's played more snaps than them. You got to have other guys out there. I know I used to think that, didn't think about blocking tight ends and all that stuff when I first started playing fantasy football. So I'm like, that guy plays for that team. You got to think about that kind of stuff. Yeah. So you got that going on. They're playing the Commanders. The Commanders are allowing the most points per game to wide receivers. So like this week, he's definitely somebody that you want to try to plug into your lineup. 9 touchdowns to wide receivers this season. That's fun times.
Yeah. I love Gesicki every week. And I think we talked about this. Maybe this was last week.
Sorry, I was before. Totally. Sorry, I don't mean to put you up. I started just talking.
Carolina.
I started reading the wrong thing. Yeah, we're doing. So this is the thing. Let me rewind real quick because I'm kind of giving you a hint as to my other player. I just totally jumped to his stuff. So that's kind of a behind the scenes oopsie. And what I was meaning to say is he is facing the Carolina Panthers defense. They're giving up the 3rd most fantasy points to tight ends because as soon as I said wide receiver, I am talking about the wrong person. So anyway, there's that. 2 tight ends, 2 touchdowns to tight ends this season. That's the most in the league, which is crazy, but that's the most in the league. It's tight end.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I like it. I like him for a touchdown this week. Now, since you already kind of started rattling off your other guy, let's talk about Michael Wilson in Arizona. We wanted this to be Greg Dortch, and I actually wrote up Michael Wilson in my waiver column this week, and I think that's how I started. His section this was supposed to be Greg Dortch, but alas, here we are. Michael Wilson seems to be that wide receiver too now.
Yeah, so that's who he's exactly right. That's who I was talking about, Michael Wilson. So the way I have it written down, see, this is what happens when you prepare.
Yeah, right.
You prepare so much that you have it all memorized, you get it all written down perfectly, and then you get thrown off. So anyway, Michael Wilson, we already know Marvin Harrison. That's the man. Okay, that's cool. But he was targeted 9 times against the Lions, and he caught 8 of those targets, went for 64 yards. Trey McBride exits the game towards the end with a concussion. All right. Then, like I said, they're playing the Commanders. Giving up all those points to wide receivers. So, and the 9 touchdowns on top of that, and the 3rd most yards to wide. I mean, we could go on and on about the Commanders.
Well, we saw what the Bengals defense did to him last weekend. I mean, or last Monday, I guess Monday night. I was on the road buying a new laptop while that game was on, which thank God. Can you guys tell it's not as buggy anymore? It's so just now reading, Trey McBride doesn't look like he was not at practice today. Doesn't look like he's going to play. I think Michael Wilson is probably in line for a similar target share this week. I could see him 9 to 10 targets, especially because Dortch hasn't been exactly healthy. And that certainly hasn't helped. But at this point now, it just kind of feels like Wilson's probably establishing himself as that guy, and Dortch might have just missed his opportunity, unfortunately. But yeah, I like these 2 calls. So Michael Wilson and Mike Gesicki. It's the Mike party here on Casey's side for our post waivers. My 2 players, I'm getting weird with it, Casey. My first one's Andy Dalton. Yeah. I like to call him the pale squirt gun. I've heard him called the red rocket. I mean, whatever you want to call Andy Dalton. He's back as a starter. 7.4% rostered on ESPN. He's the first quarterback in the league this year, Casey, to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a game. Andy Dalton. Wow. I just think from looking at the quarterback position, is he startable in 1 QB? There might be some weeks you can fire him up. In 2 QB, though, I really want Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
He's a value. He's still not rostered, so you're not even going to have to pay up for him. Like, this isn't going to cost you any fab.
Nobody's rostering him. You just said that. But I'm just repeating the demand.
I know it should be repeated. Him and Sam Darnold. Like, the disrespect these two guys are getting.
Yep.
Looking back on Andy Dalton's career, okay. We can talk about how he's really hasn't started since his years in Cincinnati. But when he was in Cincinnati, he was perennially a QB2 in fantasy. He finished QB4 one season. He had like 35 touchdown passes. We know he can get it done.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the wear and tear that some of these other backups that are coming in have. He's got more skill than guys like Skylar Thompson and Tyler Huntley. Taylor Heineke making an appearance for Justin Herbert last weekend. This is in 2 QB leagues. He should not be on the waiver wire anymore.
I'm gonna have to go check my home league because if he's available, I need some help there. So I'm gonna definitely check that out.
Yeah,
I think people just forget he's still in the league, and so.
I mean, that is entirely possible. It feels like he's been here since I was in high school. That's just Tom Brady. But Jonnu Smith is my second one, Casey. The Miami tight end. We've talked about him for a couple weeks now. He had that big week 2 weeks ago. Really saw a lot of usage after the Tua injury. Took a dip this past week, but they're up against Tennessee. This Miami team needs a win. Like, they've got to try and keep their heads above water while Tua is healing up. Got to stay in playoff contention until he comes back. Part of why they got manhandled last week is because they didn't work the short pass as well. And a lot of that was because they didn't use Jonnu Smith enough. Mike McDaniel is smart enough to know if they're going to beat Tennessee, and a pretty good Tennessee defense, it's going to chase Skylar Thompson all over the field. They got to get Jonnu involved. They got to start running some of those backfield plays where he's lining up as a fullback, and maybe the handoffs, the shovel passes, the jet sweeps. They've got to get him involved somehow, some way in this offense, because that's going to help them win. Teams are going to blanket Tyreek Hill in this situation, which is why people are asking, what do I do about this?
Yeah.
It's hard to get Tyreek the ball, especially for a quarterback who really doesn't have that great of an arm. He's not a big arm talent guy. He's more of a, hey, we can throw this guy in when someone's hurt because he can run type quarterbacks. How I feel about Skylar Thompson. So I would go out and get Jonnu Smith. Is he going to be a start every week? Absolutely not. But we're all streaming tight ends anyway. And if you're streaming tight ends, this is a good week to go.
That's the best position to take a shot on. Like, if you're going to take a shot on any position, tight end is definitely where, like, you're going to get, like, you're either going to get really bad or you're going to get all right.
Yeah.
There's nothing in between.
Travis Kelce is still like tight end 25 or whatever the hell. So it really does become a matchups game with these guys 100%. Every single week. Now, speaking of matchups and players that we want to start and sit, let's get over to our start and sits for the week. I go through, guys, the Fantasy Pros ECR rankings, full PPR. I look at where some of these kind of fringe guys are sitting, and we're going to talk about whether or not we want to start them. We'll give you the matchup. We'll give you the player. We're going to start with quarterbacks. My first one, we've already talked about him a little bit. Trevor Lawrence is up against the Texans this weekend in Houston. If you had told me 3 or 4 years ago, two or 3 years ago, that we'd be talking about Trevor Lawrence, start or sit any week, I was thought, well, that's probably not good that we're talking about him. It's not good that we're talking about it, but here we are. He hasn't eclipsed 15 fantasy points yet this season. He's got 2 touchdowns to 1 interception. He just has been really wildly inefficient. Sub 2 or sub 500 completion percentage in his second game against Cleveland. What are you doing with it? Are you starting Trevor Lawrence this week against Houston?
No, I don't think I am.
Not either.
Okay. I one quarterback leagues, I'm not. It's just there's probably somebody out there that either you picked up already off of waivers, hopefully, or you've got somebody that's got a better matchup. That's what you need to look into.
Andy Dalton.
There you go. Hey.
Now, Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
Up against the New Orleans Saints this weekend. Obviously, we saw what he did last week. Are we excited about Kirk Cousins against New Orleans this week, Casey?
I'm not excited about Kirk Cousins this week. I get what happened with New Orleans. I get, okay. The matchup with New Orleans, it's not ideal for him. It like you were saying, we really, Darnell Mooney, stepping in instead of Kyle Pitts and all this stuff. Like, we just don't know. It's all mushy.
It's all very mushy. And this New Orleans defense, look, I hate Dennis Allen as a coach, right? I think terrible head coach.
Okay.
Don't think he should be
I
head coach in the league. But I will say the guy is a hell of a defensive coordinator, and his teams always have good defenses. I want nothing to do with Kirk Cousins this week, because I feel like we're just going to get the same thing we got the last 2 weeks, which is 20 of 29 for 200 something yards. Maybe he gets a touchdown. Maybe he does against this defense. It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we both are agreeing. Kirk Cousins is a sit this week. What about Caleb Williams up against the Rams? Showed a little progress last week, but I'm sitting him because I still want to see more. Long-term, love Caleb Williams. Not ready to start him yet.
I think I am starting him this week because of how many yards per pass attempt that the Rams, sorry, I just blanked on who that the Rams give up. So I have a feeling with the yardage, and it's 9.4 yards. So I mean that's a pretty amount of yardage there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Though, I think you might have changed my mind on this actually. Now that I do like the matchup against the Rams. He threw the ball 52 times last week against Indy, and Indy's defense is putrid. Yeah. But maybe we see a little bit more from Caleb Williams. In 1 QB, I'm not starting him. 2 QB, though, I can get on board with that.
Yeah. He's right there on that cusp for me of a QB, like a low-end QB1 or a high-end QB2.
Sure. Okay, now Anthony Richardson against Pittsburgh. This Pittsburgh defense is really good.
Yeah, it is.
Anthony Richardson is prone to make mistakes. How are you feeling about him this week?
Not feeling great, Nate. Not feeling great at all. I think I'm sitting him against the Steelers. I just, don't want to deal with that sadness. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't sit him in Scott Fishbowl. But that's okay because there are no negative points in Scott Fishbowl. So I think I'll be okay. Yeah. But in normal leagues, even in 2 QB, I'm probably going to sit Anthony Richardson this week. You've got other guys who are less mistake prone against worse defenses. So it just kind of makes sense to me. I want to pop into the chat here real quick. We've got a few questions here. We've got Kang TTV over on Twitch. Kang, thank you for tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button over there on Twitch if you haven't already. His question, Casey, is this. Full PPR. I'm 2-1. 1 QB, 1 flex. Need a better running back room. I have Rachaad White, James Conner, Amon-Ra, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Godwin, Khalil Shakir, Jacoby Myers, and JSN. He wants to know, what trade would you drop for another player in the league who has Bijan, Jordan Mason, and Zach Charbonnet? Let's go back to this original here. So first, who are you trading for out of those 3? Which one do you think is most attainable right now?
Most obtainable right now? Probably Charbonnet.
That's what I was going to say too. I feel like it's probably Charbonnet's one I'm targeting here because, again, most attainable. Who are you moving on this team? One more time, I'll go back through who he's got. This is full PPR, 1 QB, 1 flex. Rachaad White, James Conner, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Godwin, Khalil Shakir, Jacoby Myers, and Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Who am I giving up out of that? This is why it takes me forever to do trades. It takes me so long.
It takes me forever too. Because you want to get the right one together, right?
You want to get the right one together, but then you overthink it. And so maybe you should just go with your gut feelings. I'm just not sure. Certain players are I feel like certain players are too much and certain players are not enough.
So here's where I would go. Rachaad White. I'd package Rachaad White, Jacoby Myers, and JSN for Zach Charbonnet, and I want a second rounder next year as well. That's the move I'd make.
I like
Get your guy, you get Zach Charbonnet, but again, we don't know what his long-term value is. I'm again assuming this is dynasty. So
see, that's why my brain was thinking redraft, but I was like, this is very complex for a redraft question. Right. So when you looking at through that lens.
Right. Well, I always assume trades are dynasty unless I'm told otherwise.
I know. It's crazy to me when people say that they have trades in their redraft leagues because there is no way I can get
I don't
trades done.
know.
Redraft.
I did have to trade for Justin Fields in redraft a couple of weeks ago. But thanks, Herms. I appreciate it, buddy.
Go.
Yeah. All right. So we've got 2 Bird Studio wedding films. Where were you guys when I was getting married? Our photography was, well, I had my sister do it. It was crap. But hey, we have our memories. He wants to know Tolbert or Indius this week. I'm assuming he meant Yosevash, which he did. Yosevash, sheesh, I can't spell. Don't worry. I screw his name up on our show sheets when I write it. I am probably going to go with Yosevash because he's on that hot touchdown streak. And the Bengals got to win, man. And whatever's working for this team, they're 0-3. It's bad right now. Burrow's not looking great. My move would be Yosevash this week.
Yosevash. I have to say people's names over and over.
Well, especially that one.
Yes, but I'm also going to go with him this week as well. I just feel like the Tolbert thing, like the Turpins, I get it. They're both the situations they've got.
Sure.
But I just lean towards that guy whose name I can't say.
I am with you. And then our favorite fantasy football cat, good old Mr. Scampers, jumping in the chat saying hello. Mr. Scampers, it is wonderful, as always, to see you. And he's got a question for us, Casey. Yes. TPR, Devin Singletary tonight or Olave at Atlanta? I'm probably going to start Olave, but with reservations, knowing that I really hope that last week wasn't an aberration and that we're going to see more of that from him. I have a hard time thinking we will. I'm gonna say Olave. Pray for the boom, but be prepared for no boom at all.
I'm gonna go with Singletary tonight. I hate doing that because that would mean that would be a flex spot, and so I know that's cliche to say, don't put your Thursday night players in flex, but
fair point.
Olave just for the touchdown upside with the Falcons, giving up red zone targets at least. Like, he should be able to see some targets this week.
Yep. No, I agree with you. Aaron Hudson, any update on Laporta? Do you think he plays on Monday? What I'm seeing is that he missed practice today. So that's concerning.
That's not good.
King TTV wants to know, I also have Justice Hill for whatever it's worth. It doesn't really change much for me, but it is a keeper league. $200 buy-in.
Ooh, buddy.
Look at you out there balling. I love it. My advice stays the same. Make that trade because you can hold on to. Yep. Then we've got Adam in the chat. He wants to know, should I trade Rashid and Hunt for Jonathan Brooks? This has to be a dynasty question. There's no way it's not. If you're pretty shored up with your team right now and you're just looking to add some long-term depth at running back, sure, I'm okay with this. Shahid's long-term value, do we even really know what that is at this point? I don't think we have any clue.
Just looking at it, I'd give them up for Brooks. Just looking at it. I mean, obviously looking at your roster and all that stuff, like you said, the construction and, Are you rebuilding like me in every single one of my dynasty leagues?
Right. That's how it feels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You win the first one. Sorry, I wanted to say you win the first one, and then you sell the whole farm to win the first one. Then you're rebuilding for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that in every league. Mr. Scampers wants to know in PPR, Jerome Ford against Vegas or Cortland Sutton against the Jets. This is gross. Probably Jerome Ford.
I'm going Ford as well.
I don't like the matchup for Sutton. I don't think he can beat.
No, I think Ford has a better matchup than Sutton does by a mile.
Oh, by a country mile. It's not even close.
Country mile
out there in Texas.
Yep.
Let's get over to start sit running backs. To be fair, I can use that accent. My family is from Texas.
All right.
I just don't have the accent anymore. Or never did anymore. What am I talking about here? All right, let's get to these running backs, and we're going to go straight to Texas, to the Houston Texans. Cam Akers up against Jacksonville this week. Somebody that we told a lot of people to start last week. He just simply didn't really do a whole lot. Unfortunately, 9 carries for 21 yards. He had 3 targets, 1 catch for 8 yards. He had the 1 touchdown, which did help his value a little bit in fantasy. Are you starting him this week against Jacksonville? Because it sounds like Mixon's still out. Akers is going to be the guy.
Yeah.
But does that matter?
Well, here in my Texan accent, because I am from Texas, so here we go. Now this is how I sound. So anyway, I'm starting him this week. I think the Jags are just horrible against running backs, and the Vikings are decent, are good, and so yeah, I see him being able to score some fantasy points. Fourth most is what they're giving up right now, the Jags. So
Yep.
let's go.
Yep. Well, and I think this is a game that's going to be out of hand early because Jacksonville's bad. So they'll keep the ball on the ground. I know. What about Zach Moss against Carolina? I'm not a big fan of Zach Moss, but apparently I had him way too low in my rankings, and I heard about it on Reddit.
Reddit.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Reddit.
Reddit. Love you.
But Carolina, this is a game that can be out of hand pretty quick because Carolina's really freaking bad. Zach Moss and Chase Brown, both on the list here. Are you starting either, both, neither?
Yeah, I think I'm starting both. Zach Moss, I'd be more likely to put in my running back and, more likely to flex Chase Brown. Obviously not separately. Hopefully I don't have them on the same team. But if I do, they have a good chance of both putting up points this week. I mean, we've talked about the Commanders and they looked good against them.
Yes.
And so that happened. But, now I'm just going to stop talking.
So I'm starting Zach Moss. I think he gets the majority of the rushing volume. But last week, Chase Brown, 7 carries for 62 yards. What concerns me about Chase Brown is the snap percentage. 24% of snaps last week, 20 against Kansas City, 33 against New England. If he doesn't get a couple of boom plays and some targets, I don't know that he's fantasy relevant this week.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, okay, if I have to flex him, I will. Yeah.
Yep. I would flex him. There are situations in which I would flex him if I didn't have something else to do. Real quick, want to get to this question here in the chat. Quincy Davis is asking us, need 2, Wendell Robinson, Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen, Alan Lazard. I'm going to say Lazard and Irving for me. Who are you two, Casey?
I'm going to go Irving and Allen.
Irving and Allen. You think Braylon Allen gets another touchdown this week?
Yeah.
I kind of think he does too. I also think Alan Lazard gets a touchdown though. So
okay,
we're just gonna
alrighty.
Have to see here. Let's get that comment off the screen and we can get back to our running backs. We got one more to talk about, Casey, and it is Braylon Allen against Denver. And I think we just cleared that up. We're starting Braylon Allen.
Yep.
I love the storyline of it. I think is what I love most. The oldest quarterback in the league growing to the youngest running back and
awesome.
youngest player in the league. Yeah, I think it's just kind of a cool deal. Now let's get to wide receivers. We're going to start in Baltimore. Khalil Shakir of Buffalo up against this Ravens defense. It has not been as good as they are historically. Still been okay. How do you feel about Khalil Shakir this week?
I feel good about him this week. I'm starting him this week. He looked good on Monday, led the team in targets and receiving yards, and he's caught all of his targets this season. Ravens giving up the 5th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position per game this year. And they've given up 527 yards and 4 touchdowns to wide receivers through the air. So, that's yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm firing Khalil Shakir up pretty much every week at this point. Now, Rashid Shaheed is somebody I thought was going to be a fire up every week. Then he really just laid a stinker on us this past weekend. But division rival Atlanta Falcons, are you firing up Rashid Shaheed this week against him?
Yes. I think that I know Olave was somebody that we were talking about earlier. I think they both might have a chance to be fantasy relevant. And that can happen on teams, guys. So, yeah.
Yep. No, it absolutely can. Well, we're talking about Braylon Allen, starting Braylon Allen. And I'm not saying don't start Breece Hall.
Right. Exactly.
So now Jaden Reed, Packers wide receiver, up against the Minnesota Vikings this weekend in Green Bay. It's not sounding like we're going to see Jordan Love. Could be another Malik Willis the week. Are you starting Jaden Reed anyway?
Yes, I'm starting him, I think. I know the Vikings haven't given up a touchdown to wide receivers, and that's scary. But they give up a lot of receiving yards. A lot.
Well, and plus, like we've talked about on this show, Jaden Reed is such a gadget tool guy where he does kind of like that Deebo Samuel type stuff where you line him up in the backfield, you run the jet sweeps, you run the bubble screens, he gets stuff like that, and he gets yards after the catch.
Mhm.
I like him against Minnesota, even though that Minnesota's defense isn't maybe getting enough credit for how good they've been.
Right.
They've been better than advertised, but I'm still starting Jaden Reed. We've talked a lot about this Miami situation, Casey, and we're going to talk about it one more time. Jalen Waddle up against Tennessee this week. We're questioning starting Tyreek Hill.
Right. Yeah.
Are we questioning starting Jalen Waddle?
Yes. I'm questioning it. I'm not actually questioning it. I'm just sitting him. Jalen.
It hurts.
It hurts because I do the wide receiver 2 radar every week on Optimus Fantasy. Go check that out. And I at the beginning of the season, we're talking about the wide receiver 2s on teams and how dominant some of these guys are, and it hurts to see what's going on right now with everything that's happening. I couldn't have imagined that at the beginning of the year.
No, it sucks. It really sucks. I'm also sitting Jalen Waddle, and I'm sitting Jalen Waddle until Tua's back, which I have mixed feeling on whether I want him back or not.
Yeah, I know.
For football, I do. For his health, I just don't think he should play.
Healthy.
But yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to see how that all shakes out. But for now, Waddle's kind of just going to be on the bench for me. I want to get to the chat. We've got some more questions popping in here, Casey. Vince Mapstone wants to know who wins the AFL Grand Final tomorrow, the Brisbane Lions or the Sydney Swans. I like the name, Sydney Swans, so I'm going with Sydney. I know nothing about this.
Sydney Swans. Swans? No, those are geese that are scary. Are swans scary too, or is it just geese?
No, swans aren't scary.
Okay, they're just pretty.
Yeah.
Majestical?
Yeah, pretty majestical.
Okay, cool. No, guys, I do know what a swan is. I'm going to go with the Lions because that was my high school mascot. So there we go.
All right. You know what my high school mascot was?
What?
Farmers.
Oh, were you guys the Fighting Farmers?
No, just the Farmers.
Just the Farmers.
Yeah, our logo was this like chubby white dude with blonde hair and overalls holding a pitchfork.
Oh, man.
It wasn't even really a pitchfork. It's more like a rake.
A rake. Wow.
I don't know. We've got Harlan Wag jumping in over there on Twitch. Guys, if you are watching us on Twitch, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate it. We are really trying to get a hold over there on Twitch and help you guys win at fantasy football. So the more subs, the better. The more people are going to get to see what we're doing here. He is currently 2-1, Casey. He wants to know if he should trade DK and Diggs for A-Chain and Cup. I'm immediately going to say no.
No.
Because of Cup. We don't know how much we're going to see of him this season.
Yeah. I mean, when he was healthy, he looked good, but he didn't stay healthy for very long. And now we're playing the waiting game, and I just don't feel comfortable doing that now.
Yep. His follow-up was, should I do just Diggs for Cup or just stay away from Cup in general? Harlan, stay away from Cup right now.
Yeah, just stay away from Cup.
There's too much up in the air with it. And we've seen these injuries kind of linger for him the last couple of seasons. It's why Puka was able to break out last year. So if you're going to move for one of those receivers, if you can get Puka, it sounds like he's going to be back here and healthy and good to go once he comes off IR. So I'd maybe make a move for him. Jamie Parag jumping in the chat. What is up, Jamie? Friend of the show. Thank you for tuning in. Would you start Zeke tonight or Kittle in the flex? No tight end premium. Are you nervous? I'm nervous about Kittle playing.
Yeah, I'm nervous about Kittle playing for starters.
Yeah, so I'd go ahead and throw Zeke in tonight in that flex, especially if it's not tight end premium.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than no points.
Yeah, and you never know with Zeke. I know we haven't really seen it, but we've seen it, but Zeke likes to just fall into that end zone every now and then, but try to barrel through to his thing, eat or whatever, so.
Yeah. Or you know what you could do, Jamie? You could listen to our post-waiver advice earlier in the show. Go grab one of those players, drop Zeke, and start that player instead of Kittle this week.
I like that. A lot.
Chestnut checkers, my friends. Chestnut checkers.
You gotta make the big moves, man.
Now Vince dropping in with an actual something not Australian football related, and we appreciate it. I have to start Braylon Allen in the home league. Feel good about it too. Dude, you should feel very good about it. Braylon Allen's talented. I read something the other day where the gist of it was they drafted him just because he was good. They knew they didn't need a running back. They just looked at him like, how did he end up here?
Yeah.
This is crazy. So they drafted him, which, I mean, for an offense, I think that's a really good call to make.
Yeah.
FBU dropping in. FBU, good to see you back in again. He wants to know, would we trade Mixon for A-Chain? Yeah, I'd make that deal.
I am too. I'm making that deal as well.
Yep. Mr. Scampers wants to know, Tyreek or Jerome Ford? I cannot tell you to start Jerome Ford over Tyreek, Mr. Scampers. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
I can.
So
am I gonna?
Well,
no,
Casey
I would
says...
start. No, I'm just kidding. I'm starting Tyreek just because of who he is. I know.
Yep.
I know.
And that's where I'm at with it too. Because of who he is, I have to start him.
I hate that though, man.
I
Because it's
know,
it always turns out wrong. It's always wrong.
No.
For me, it is. It always
for me too.
Like okay.
We've got Dustin dropping in the chat here. Dustin, thank you for tuning in. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. He says he's firing up Danny Dimes tonight. AR got to sit for this week. That is true. We talked about that just a little bit earlier. That's a good call here.
Mm-hmm.
Cesar Castillo started 2. Neighbors, Higgins, Flowers. Neighbors is a lock. Got to start.
Neighbors for sure. Yeah, Neighbors for sure. I don't, and these guys are guys, and I'm like, okay, I know I've run across your name every now and then, but I don't know how closely.
I'm leaning Higgins. I think there's just more opportunity there for him.
Okay. We'll go Higgins on that. I'm going to go Higgins on that.
Yes. Caesar, we are going Neighbors and Higgins here.
Here we go. All right.
Vince wants us to know that his high school mascot was a magpie. Horrible ratbag birds they are.
Oh, wow.
They are kind of gross. Jamie also wants to know, Singletary or Pollard first down bonus for a quarter point. I'm definitely going Singletary in that scenario.
In that scenario, yeah. But I do like Pollard a lot this week. A lot. I know a lot of people do.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our last little bit here of start sits. We've got tight ends, Casey. Our least favorite position to try and grade, but my favorite position to talk about.
Yeah, I do.
First question, Zach Ertz up against his former team, the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. He's shown that he is mostly fantasy relevant.
Yeah.
I am starting him this week. Because if you're asking this question, should I start Zach Ertz, then you probably don't have other options. So I would start Zach Ertz.
Yeah. If you don't have any other options that are available on the waiver wire, again, go check all that out. You might find some awesome information. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably would, because I'm hesitant to start Zach Ertz, but I'm starting him because it is what it is with tight end.
That's right. Well, he's got Jaden Daniels, which is titillating. I love Jaden Daniels, man. Dude, that throw that he made to Terry McLaurin in the back of the end zone.
Okay.
Oh, that was beautiful. That was it was gorgeous. Not as gorgeous was Hunter Henry's performance last weekend after we touted him all damn week. Casey, do you feel better about him this week? They're up against San Francisco.
I don't feel better about him this week. That San Francisco defense giving up the fewest points to the tight end position this season per game. We're not even going to talk about how inconsistent he is. So,
you can't start Hunter Henry. I wouldn't really be starting any of the pass catching options in New England this week, if being honest. Now, Chigga Okonkwo up against the Miami Dolphins in Miami has somehow made himself sort of fantasy relevant, but I don't think I can start him against Miami this week.
No, me either. They don't give up tight end touchdowns, and that's kind of what you need right now to step up because the landscape.
Without touchdowns, most of these guys aren't relevant.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay, now what about Isaiah Likely in Buffalo?
Yeah, Buffalo's pretty solid, giving up pretty solid amount of points to the tight ends, pretty decent amount of points. So I'm probably starting him just because, again, option wise.
Yeah. Oh, I'm starting him. I'm definitely starting him. Just kind of feel like I have to, I guess.
I like it.
All right. Well, we are done with the start sits, and I wanted to talk about some bold predictions for this weekend. I'll start with mine. I like yours better than mine.
Okay.
But I think Jaden Daniels is going to outduel Kyler Murray. I think he outscores him in fantasy, and I think we walk away from this week 4 saying, all right, that's it. Jaden Daniels, real deal.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. So let me get mine pulled up real quick because it's so bold. No, I remember what it was. Well, last week I said that Jalen Naylor was going to score a touchdown for 3 times in a row, 3 games in a row, and it happened. So I guess it wasn't that bold of a prediction because it happened. So let's go with Will Dissly scoring a touchdown this week, okay?
I love it.
I know that Hayden Hurst truthers out there. I love Hayden Hurst, but the Chiefs aren't good against tight ends, and let's see Will Dissly step up.
I love it. We've got more questions in the chat. We've got Coyote SB asking thoughts on Rico Dowdle this evening. He also followed up with, oops, sorry, late. You're never late. As long as we're on the air, Coyote, we are answering your questions. So drop, if you've got more, throw them in the chat. Casey, what are your thoughts on Rico Dowdle?
My thoughts on Rico Dowdle is, I don't know if he's again one of those guys. I'm not sure I feel comfortable starting him. I mean, I'm going to probably. Well, I don't know. Because it's Thursday night, I don't want to sit and dwell on it. I don't want to sit and dwell on this loss I think is coming to me if he ends up doing something that just doesn't give me points. I don't know. Zeke, I don't know. It's kind of, we'll see. They might need to be throwing that ball. So
I kind of feel like they're going to need to throw the ball. And if you look at this backfield, they don't have anybody over 100 yards. Rico Dowdle is at what? He's got 88 yards. Zeke has 62. It's not, for fantasy, I'm sorry, Rico. I know everybody wanted you to be a thing. I kind of did too. It just didn't seem to work out. Guys, I want to thank all of you who have tuned in and hung out with Casey and I on this Thursday afternoon.
Best part of my week. Best part of my week.
Always. I want to remind all of you guys who are here, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Optimus Fantasy Football channel. We have got a lot of fun stuff coming up tomorrow. Join myself and Mike Reedy for DFS Live. That is at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then I'll be back at 6 p.m. Eastern, myself, Matthew Chester at FFMadJester on Twitter. Come join us. We're going to answer all your questions. It's a madhouse for that show. It's an absolute blast. We'll roll through 150 questions in an hour, and it's great, and we love it. So, guys, get those questions over in the chat, or if you want to get them in ahead of time to make sure that we can get to them for you, find us on Twitter at Optimus Fantasy. Shoot us a DM. Send us an email, team@optimusfantasy.com. Get it into that inbox, and we will get those questions out there for you. And then how could I forget, Casey? Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern, we're going to be on Reddit, the subreddit Fantasy Football, 3 million plus users strong. We've got you covered on start sit right up until game time. We try to get to all the questions. We really, really, really do try to get to all the questions. But when you're talking into the thousands,
Nate did it by himself for a while. I helped him out. I'm going to try to keep helping you out. But
we're getting more help.
I didn't realize when you said like, oh yeah, you were like, oh yeah, like 1,000, whatever. And I'm like, bruh. And when I saw it, I'm like, and they're just coming and coming. I was like, all right.
They just come and they come and they come.
And I want to like overstate why I want to start somebody, but you can't get through them all.
I learned week 1, it's 1 and 2 word answers.
Yeah.
If you can get away with it. I
was like, they want it now. They want it now. Let's go. I want it now too. So.
Oh, exactly. Coyote did want to say thank you both. You're very welcome. Just please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. One more question before we get out of here, Casey, is from Quacky over on YouTube. Quacky, thanks for tuning in. Should I trade A.J. Brown and Keon Coleman for Mike Evans and T. Higgins? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to make that deal right now. A.J. Brown's health concerns me. Mike Evans basically wakes up and catches 1,000 yards. And I like T. Higgins.
Yeah, I like the Higgins-Evans side, so I wouldn't be doing that. Yep.
Tingley wants to know, start DeMarcus Robinson or Wan'Dale Robinson? DeMarcus for me.
Yeah, DeMarcus. But watch Wan'Dale have – just keep an eye there. It's my
all right, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. We really greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, I will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern for our DFS live show, and then the mailbag at 6 p.m. Eastern. Until then, I'm Nate Polvogt for Kacey Kasem. We are Optimus Fantasy. We'll see you next week.